Greetings and salutations, exiles. So I tuned into the weekly Friday live stream FunCom Conan Exiles Q&A where they had Alex, the lead design, and Eric, the community manager. And I try to generally, I mean, many of you know that follow my content. I have been unhappy with the direction of the development, and I would consider myself a power user, or a somebody who has spent a significant amount of time, close to 1,500 hours of gameplay, and I've played on a multitude of servers, PVE, PvP. I've even played on international servers, basically, the no ping. So with me being in Korea and playing with a Chinese community or an Asian community, and me being in America playing with a Western community, like, my opinion has evolved. So there's a lot of depth and understanding there. And playing in all these different servers, because I don't have the ping to where I can actually get onto the Western server. You're forced to play in different play styles, and there's our sharp contrast. And so, and they talked pretty extensively in this live stream about, um, you know the perception, or people ask for different stuff and they have to balance that. They talked about the RP community. They talked about, the desire to develop the RP community. And I think the thing that they are not connected to, or they are not don't really grasp the perception of, it doesn't matter if they try to cater to one community if they don't have the population to support uh, a healthy gameplay. If they don't have the population to drive monetary value, to where people want to have their friends stay around long enough for their friends to invite their other friends. So, I've probably bought in 10 copies of the game, and none of my friends want to play. And so they can add all the RP stuff. It doesn't fix core gameplay mechanics to keep the population around. And I always speak to this. I have my wish list where it's like 110 videos now, where I speak to core gameplay mechanics that use existing assets that will maintain and keep the current population in order to drive monetary value, and to build on the existing population, and to thrive a community. And that's where they fail ultimately, is they fail in propping up the numbers. And I think if they refocus their goal in asset development, to where they say, if we put our time and energy into items that would our systems that would currently fix player player population exodus, right? So for example, if they were to build up base defense to where iron palisade, I know this is so simple, but iron palisades and steel palisades, and right now your current wood palisade has 5,000 hit points. If you were to make it where a steel palisade had 15,000 hit points, or you matched it to the current tier system, and changed the animation, so like the iron would look the exact same as the wood, it just would have more hit points. And then the tier 3 steel palisade equivalent would actually have a foundation to it, and it would snap to a current building block. But basically, those system would give you more of a standoff in order to survive the 6 hours of being offline rated, because there's no amount of building design that you can do that will withstand the duration of offline rating. And I've talked about this excessively. I got lots of videos of me being raided by the Chinese, and every day I build it up, and I build a better mousetrap, and the extremes that I have gone through to try to withstand the rating, and it becomes a challenge, and it's a better mousetrap, and so they commit full resources. And I've been able to record this while it happens, and it's quite interesting when you start to see some serious flaws. And all of this is extensively documented. I mean, all you got to do is search Chinese on my YouTube channel, and it's fascinating, and it flushes out. You get pissed because you realize that there are inadequacies, but uh, their focus, that, in some aspects, I believe they live in a bubble, and they really need to prioritize their development aspect on key features, and it really needs to be they need to ask themselves at the end of the day, is this going to promote the player base to stay around? And if this promotes the player base to stay around, it needs to prioritize. If it doesn't promote the player base from leaving, it needs to be shifted to the left in order to manage asset development. And some of those things can be done rather quickly with current assets that are in the game. They don't need to actually generate new assets. It's just a refinement. And they mentioned a few things in here, like they talked about at the end of the stream, they'd actually talked about a leveling system for pets. And I'm afraid that it works for horses, because your horses will ultimately be with you, and you gain more capability as you ride your horse, right? You train your horse, you level your horse. But where I'm worried about with pets is right now pets are all clones through the tiering except for hit points, and they, like, unfortunately they don't do any additional damage. So I dread the idea of spending 2 weeks leveling up a pet, and then unfortunately somebody comes along and gasses it out because you don't have the ability to put a gas mask on your pet. You don't have the ability to um, protect your pets. But they did talk about adding lockable pins in a new update coming, the next content update that is coming. So I was super excited about that. That is something that I've been pushing for the last 6 months. So maybe I am having an impact. Who knows? I mean, they'll never acknowledge me for the amount of work and time and constructive criticism that I put into FunCom and the Conan project. But at least at the end of the day, if I know that I develop the player base and keep people interested in the content, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is about improving Robert E. Howard's image. This is about kind of his legacy, pushing forth his legacy through space and time. But in this stream, I asked a series of questions, and the questions that I ultimately asked was, so I reworded about 15 questions so it wouldn't come across as spam. I'm always fighting the fight, so hopefully they cut and paste. I doubt that they did it. I doubt that they had the leadership and the direction to cut and paste all of the questions, because the people that chimed into this live stream are their more core players. I recognized at least 4 other YouTubers on this stream that were asking questions. And so these are the people who are like their premier um, player base. And a lot of them were really good questions, like boats. Are they going to add boats? And they cherry picked um, about 10 questions through the course of an hour through Reddit and their forums. And what's funny was most of it was off of Reddit, and I don't really have a presence on Reddit. I just mainly stick to the forums. But it was interesting because some of them were very cherry picked and based around RP, which is their new DLC. So they obviously want to promote their DLC. But the questions that I asked in this live stream is really based around the growth of population, are protecting the current population in the game. Because if you log on and you search the servers, half the servers are zero population. So, like, one of my questions is, what's the possibility of switching a chest to when you spawn a chest, it was on auto lock, and then you had to click on the menu and have the option to have it be open as a default. So auto lock was the default. And what this does is when new players are learning the game, they don't know that the chest is by default on open, and then they put all their stuff in the chest, and then somebody comes along and raids all their stuff because they don't know they can lock the chest. They get angry and they quit the game. It's a no-brainer, but it's the simple, and there's no asset development that's required about that. It's just a matter of changing defaults. But I asked that one several times. I asked, what's the likelihood of splitting up the raid time? I've done extensive videos on this, like a 10 and 2 or a 10 and 3, so that way somebody doesn't have a consecutive 6 hours of offline raiding. Another question I asked is, what's the possibility or what's the likelihood of adding lockable animal pins? They did answer that. what's the likelihood of a pet rework? I asked this question like 5 times, and at the end of the thing, they did discuss a pet rework. And so maybe my video about why pets suck finally, maybe it's resonated. Maybe enough people have watched it, and and I realized not many people put them on blast. Like out of all the YouTubers, most of the YouTubers have stopped doing content on Conan Exiles. I've noticed that the vast majority have segued into other content, and um, and none of them are critical of game design. They're like, oh, look at this new water sack, and that's all they do. They don't talk about existing mechanics. There's no depth. There's no knowledge. It's just like, here's where the shiny item is, and I do not do that. That is not my style. So another question is crafting tier 3 bases. So I talk about the shrines. What's the possibility of doing a shrine rework? So basically, tier 1 would be survival stuff, survival items, like maybe special lanterns or water sacks or stuff that kind of early game, right? Think about level 0 to 20. Tier 2 would be crafting and like fountains and shrines. Tier 3 would be your PvP and combat related stuff. And I've done several videos where I flush these ideas out, but they badly need to do a shrine deity rework to where it discusses, because the issue is on PvP and PvE. When you play on a PvE server, you lose a third of the functionality of all shrines. It's almost like tier 3 is non-existence because you lose the ability to summon gods or avatars. Avatars have no functionality. It's quite a contrast. So I discussed that, or I asked that question several times in different ways. Another one was okay, that was the shrine one. So I put all these in the text document, and I'll leave them in the comments below, so you guys can look through the comments and see the questions that I asked. But it really seemed like I got the impression that they were ignoring my content questions, and I kept it super positive, and I just rapid fire a series of questions to really try to, hopefully they'll cut and paste these questions, and it'll drive development. But another one that I asked was, okay, what's the likelihood of reworking storage solutions? The storage system badly needs to be updated and reworked along with the inventory system. I've done a couple of videos kind of explaining or showcasing what is wrong with the current inventory system and the vault system. Look through my videos and just type in vault or storage solution, and you'll agree that it's lacking. It's very much lacking. They need to spend some time revisiting the revisiting this system and just put some because what happens is the storage solution, you really only have one storage solution. You have a chest and a vault, and the vault is your only PvP solution, and they need to add safes that still have a relatively high hit point, and storage solution that you can hide, because your best survival in a PvP scenario is hiding, because they have no base defense. So you have to build small, and that kind of talked onto my single slot, our single pin, single slot animal pins that are lockable. Same thing with, and it's crazy that it's taken them like 6 months to finally come around to updating this stuff. So hopefully, those will make positive changes. But I'm afraid that it's too late. It's a dollar short and a day late, and I'm afraid that some of these changes, because if you look at the population on Steam, it's sitting around like 3,000. It's super low, and their direction is it's going in the wrong direction. Back to my questions. What's the likelihood of base defense, steel palisades, and iron palisades? I discussed that one earlier. I asked that several times. Another one I asked was the undead archers. And these are assets that already exist. Another one I asked was, because you can't gas out undead. Um, that's a single slot animal pins. I'm looking through my list because a lot of these I would cut and paste them into my text document as I asked them, so to kind of build up a to kind of flesh out the wish list. I talked about boats a little bit. You know, what's the possibility of adding boats? You know, the ability to build on a boat and move your boat around so your boat was never in the same location. That would be a great PvP aspect. You know, the way to, because you know they find you one day and then you're somewhere else the next, and there's a survivability aspect. Plus, it could flesh out existing content and kind of reutilize or give certain assets more value that already exist that don't really have any purpose or application. And then I know this video is very technical in nature and may not be enjoyable, but it should add some depth and insight. But I really feel with the RP stuff, they're going in the wrong direction because that doesn't save the population. The stuff that saves the population. Oh, I asked about my torch. For many of you know, they talked about the way that they really chime into stuff that needs to have time spent on it is the amount of views or the amount of traffic that exists on the forums. And so, you know, in the past, I've posted videos and asked the community to go put their input on a certain topic. So I'm going to continue to do that to try to drive positive change. But yeah, I'm always fighting the fight. You know, I'm trying to drive positive change, and I hope you guys appreciate this. It's sometimes it's a little frustrating because you're like, it's so obvious. You know, it's so obvious. It's like, you know, it's 110 outside and the sun's blaring. There's no clouds. Maybe you should put some sunscreen on. You know, um, but they don't grasp that their monetization is a direct relation to the population, and if they don't support population development or key mechanics that drive the stabilization of population, then their revenue drops, and which, you know, dropping revenue results in um, poor quality content for us as player base, and then it also results in lackluster game design and kind of diminishing experience. So as always, thank you for watching. You know, feedback is always important. If you agree or disagree with this content, please let me know. I hope that this is something that you know, you appreciate and it gives you some perspective and insight. Thank you for watching.